Hey crafty friends, it's Joy here. Welcome back to my channel, and I am super excited to share this card with you. This is my favorite things, big screen scenes, and I'm going to be using that stamp set, the screen scene die, and the classic TV die for this card. Now this is a longer video, you guys, but definitely hang on because it's so worth it. We're going to start off with our background because this has to dry. So I just have a piece of white cardstock. I'm using some Cloud Whip, and I am going to just spread it over the whole background. I am doing it fairly thin because I don't want this to take forever to dry. And then I'm going to tap my palette knife just to give it a little bit of texture. This is going to be like a stone wall for part of our scene. So in this screen scene stamp set, there's so many cute movie scenes, and I am picking the one that's Indiana Jones. So this is from Raiders of the Lost Ark, and we're Indiana Jones people. We love to watch those movies. So I'm starting with this little egg here, what it looks like, and I am going to make it gold. I'm using Copic Markers. This is on Nina cardstock. You guys will be able to see the caps there for what colors that I am using. And I am actually going to be using a light source this time. It's pretty rare that I use a light source when I'm coloring, and it's going to be the left side will have the light source. So I'm going to make the right side of everything a lot darker. And I really had fun with this. I probably feel like I need to do, number one, I need to do scenes more, and then I need to do light sources more. So you'll see that I'm going to keep everything much darker. Now, when I colored that egg, on the left side, I did leave a tiny sliver uncolored. I left it white. So you could do it that way, and then in a little bit, I'll show you another way to add a really bright highlight, which I'll show you on other parts of this cute little scene here. So as you can see, I'm just building my color. I like to, well, normally I lay my dark down and then work to the light, but I didn't want to mess up and forget that I was trying to deal with a light source. So some of it I'm coloring the light first, some of it I'm coloring the dark first, and then I'm coming back in once I get a good blend and adding a little bit more of that dark, blending it out again. I just like to build up my color when I'm coloring with Copic markers, but you also want to make sure you are not going to oversaturate. So this cute little puppy dog's ears, the left one is lighter than the right one, of course, because we have this light source that we are going to create at the end of coloring this. Let's do his cute little Indiana Jones hat. I've got this E57, which is a really good dark color, really good dark brown. I did not want everything to have like too dark. I still wanted to be able to see colors in this, if that makes sense. So I didn't want to go with just grays, because then you're missing the color. Now ignore this color right here that I'm bringing in. I'm actually going to go back over with the E55. I didn't like how that color looked, so I actually just used the E55. But what I should have done there was left that little sliver on the hat white, uncolored, just like I did on the egg, but I will show you how I will address that in just a little bit. So let's go back over that hat again. I'm blending, I'm adding underneath, and I'm adding it darker. And as you can see, the color just keeps building and building. And when I'm adding that darker area, I'm not making sure it's like perfectly even. If you can tell by the coloring, I am making the I'm going to call it the open edge, where it meets the light, the dark meets the lighter color, a little jagged, because I don't want that to be like this perfect straight line, because that doesn't make sense. Let's do the band. So this, I'm starting with the dark. I am actually following along the hat where the light source is. So that was a good guide. So I'm going to come and bring that darker over a little bit further towards the left, and then blending that with the medium color and then adding the light color. So as you can see, we are creating this really great light source. I'm going to use the same browns for his hat that I'm using for his little bag of sand here. So I added my light area. I wanted to make sure I had enough of that and not accidentally color that too much, because that would be awful. But the good thing about alcohol ink markers, if you come in with like a blender marker or a really light color, you can kind of blend out some of the darker color and soften it just a little bit. Okay, look at how cute he's looking so far. Now it is time to work on this little pillar. I want this to have a stone look. I don't want it to be super dark. There's actually a lot of gray stone in this. And that's what that stencil paste is going to recreate. So you definitely want to hang on. I know it's a longer video, but you definitely want to hang on to get to see how this all comes together at the end, because we're going to be adding some color to that background to kind of match this background. Not exactly, but we'll get the gist of it. So I used those darker, or those sea color gray markers to add this pillar to be lighter. And then I'm going to bring in a few darker ones. I needed one a little bit darker, C8. I just needed a little bit more of a shadow on that side. And then for the ground, or the background part, and there's a little grass area too that we're going to color. I'm going to color this ground the same for the most part as I'm coloring that little pillar. Keeping it really dark on that right side, and then we'll go light over here. I do add a little bit of a shadow behind him because it just felt kind of flat to just have this one color. So I added this really thin shadow, and then I can blend that out. So to me, that looks better. I was really deciding and debating what I wanted to do, the back wall, how I wanted that to look. So I'm doing the grass first, because I was still thinking about it. Ignore this green color. I accidentally grabbed the wrong green color. I meant to be using the BG colors. They are BG 90, 93, and 96 for that grass. So I think once you have your background, or you're laid out where the light source is in the dark, it's much easier to color. So now I'm taking the C1 and making that light on the left-hand side, working my way in. I'm adding a little bit of W1, excuse me, because it's kind of a gray brown. I didn't want this just to be a complete stark gray on the light side. The darker area will be, but the light side I wanted it to have just a tad bit of brown, but we actually end up covering it up, so I probably didn't need it anyways, but it made sense at the time. So let's bring in these other C colors. C8, we're going to make this nice and dark over here. And then again, we'll go back over. I'm going to come back in with that C5 and blend over the C8. Blend into the C3, I believe it is. Yep. And then I can go back and blend with the C1. And then now we have this great background that has the light source. Okay, so this is where I was panicking. I needed to add what looked like light from torches. And so I am using, this is Y19, and then I'm taking the C1 to blend it out and make it softer. So remember I said that if you have this lighter color marker, you can blend that out and tone it down. Then I will come in with Y02 just to stretch that yellow in a little bit closer to our little raider here. And then I will blend that again with the C1. So this is going to give us our light source back there, like that's where the torches are when they're going into this little area. Okay, now the coloring is done. Let's use the screen scene die to die cut out our little character. And then this is the classic TV die. This is so cute. So I'm gonna just use my little wire snips here to get that all snipped up. I will die cut the TV from white cardstock, the antenna from white cardstock. Then there's the buttons and like the little TV panel and the legs that I've die cut from black cardstock. I am going to color the TV. I felt like I didn't want that to just be a brown cardstock. I wanted to color it. I don't mind that the legs are just a solid black and the buttons are a solid black. That's totally fine with me. But I did want to color the TV itself. So I'm just getting all of this die cutting done. The scene that I want to create, I want to bring the Indiana Jones scene out into the rest of the card, not just in the TV. So that's why I created that stone background, because I want to just feel like you're immersed in that. So this little piece here for the TV, I need that little squarish, rectangle-ish frame, so I didn't need the insert pieces, just that frame. I'm using the same browns that I used on the hat and the bag. Actually, I end up using E57 and E55. No, E59 and E57, excuse me. I thought I was going to use E55, but I opted against that. And I really like how it turned out. So I'm just throwing down some color and then just blending over it. I do get rid of this E55, but you could keep it in. I mean, it is nice, but I wasn't loving it. So I'm just going to go back with the E55 and go over that area. But I like that it gives us this really great brown, fun TV. It totally feels like the 80s to me with those big, ginormous TVs we had. So there's that E57 that I'm like, never mind, just color the whole thing. And then the outside again was that E59. So that is done and cute. Then we need to color the TV antenna. I'm going to use some grays for that. And then this little frame here that goes on the front of the TV, I'm going to color the antenna and the frame the same. So I think I use C8 and then 5 and then 3, I'm pretty sure. I'm just adding some dark in the corners. There was no rhyme or reason where I was adding color. This is how I added it. But I am going to blend it out really good with this C3 marker to really kind of soften those other colors. And then I will do the same thing for that cute TV antenna. Let's add that dark C8 and then C5, and we'll do C3 at the top. How cute is that? Let's glue this TV together. I'm just going to use a little bit of liquid glue and my reverse tweezers. This will just go right onto the front here. And then we can place our little movie scene in the background. I will add a little bit of glue adhesive. Liquid glue. I'm not sure why I said glue adhesive. That's kind of funny. And then I can just place that down over that cute scene. Then let's add a little bit of liquid glue to the bottom of our antenna and attach that. I'm going to try to center that in the TV. Every part of me wants to center it in the screen, not the TV, which is really funny. Then let's add our knobs and that little speaker to the TV. Then we have our cute little legs, which I know is kind of hard to see, you guys. I'm so sorry on this black background. But I'm just adding a little bit of adhesive at the top and then just lining them up at the bottom. And I'll show you here in my hand what that looks like when it's done. But it's such a cute little TV. Isn't that fun? I love it. Okay, now my background is dry and I'm going to do some ink blending on this to create a little bit of stone look. I'm using Distress Oxide inks. This is Lost Shadow. I'm going to use Hickory Smoke, Gathered Twigs, and Black Soot on this background. I want to have it gray because our little scene is gray, but I am going to add a little bit of brown to it. So it's not going to look exactly like the background in the little scene. This is going to be much lighter, but I felt like that was an okay thing to do. So I have that Lost Shadow in the center, the Hickory Smoke on the outside. Here's a little bit of that Gathered Twigs. I will come back in with Hickory Smoke and kind of soften the brown here. And then I will in a little bit come back in with Black Soot and just kind of add it a little bit darker. I realized I wanted it darker once we had a die cut in front of it. But you can see how that gray just kind of softens that brown a little bit. And I wanted the center to have a little highlight area because that is where our TV is going to go on this cute little scene card. Isn't that darling? And I am going to be using the Lawn Fawn's Bayou backdrop, and I like to turn it upside down because I want this to give the jungly look, like vines are hanging down. So that's why I decided to use this die. I'm going to die cut it from white cardstock, and we will do some ink blending on that. I am going to be using Rustic Wilderness and Black Soot. I want it to have a little bit of a darker green in front, and I'm leaving the die in before I pop it out of the cardstock because it's so much easier to ink blend. So this is a complete frame that I'm going to ink blend all the way around. And this is just going to give it a nice, good green color. That rustic wilderness is so pretty. And then some of that black soot. I'm not going overly dark because I still want it to feel green, but I just want it to be darker. So over that bottom frame as well. And I don't mind that it's a little bit splotchy. I actually kind of like that. And then I can just pop that out, pop the negative space out of there. And then we have this cute jungly vine look, which I think is really fun on this card. So let me just get those popped out of there. Look at how cute that is. Normally this goes the other way because this is from the Bayou backdrop, and that is really cute too. But I think I've used it mostly this way. But look at how fun that is. But when I have that laid over the top, I realize that the background needs to have some darker edges to it that kind of peek through the vine. So first I want to splatter. I decided to start splattering with the Lost Shadow, I think it was, or the Hickory Smoke. It wasn't dark enough. So I'm going to use the black soot, add a little bit of water, and splatter that on the background. And then I still hadn't decided to add the black soot yet to the corners, but I'm going to do that. I have my sentiment that I'm going to stamp here, and this says, "You're the raider of my heart," and I wouldn't have it any other way. And I'm going to stamp this on white cardstock, and I want to bring in, I don't want to do it in black ink. So I opted to find a color of ink that matched that golden egg or the golden stone or whatever it is. But here's that black soot on the edge, and it really does make a difference. It darkens it up, and that looks so much better peeking through for me personally. So in my Misty, I'm going to place my cardstock, and then I picked Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated ink in honey, and it has this perfect like gold tone to it. So I'm going to line this up at the bottom because there's not any dies for the sentiments, or I don't have any anyways. And then I can just trim the sides, one side and the top with my paper trimmer. But that color just works perfect. Now, once I laid this down on my background, it was too stark white. So I actually am going to take my gray blender brush that just had leftover ink on it, and I'm just going to blend it over just a little bit, just to grunge it up, dirty it up, because as you can see, that is too white for what's going on this card. So I'm just going to run that over again. I didn't add any ink to it. I'm just blending it, and it was the perfect amount. I added foam adhesive strips behind our Bayou backdrop die, and then I'm also adding dots of liquid glue because the ink is still sitting on top of that texture paste. It's not dry yet, and the liquid glue will help it hold, while the other foam adhesive will also help it hold. So they'll kind of work together until that liquid glue dries, and it'll hold really, really well. I'm adding some foam adhesive behind my sentiment, of course. I'm using the 1mm foam adhesive from scrapbook.com, and I'm going to center that at the bottom, and I'm kind of tucking it under that bottom part of the frame. And this TV will not have foam adhesive. I want it tucked back behind the sentiment and behind all of those vines hanging down. And this will be adhered to a white A2 size card base. But this is where I'm going to show you how you can add that white edge of a highlight. I'm just taking my white gel pen and very carefully right above the black stamped line on the brim and on the side there and on the side of the bag and the ear, just a little bit of the white gel pen. So now you have that white sharp line. But look at how cute this is, you guys. I love this card so much. I just think that's such a fun stamp from my favorite things. Thank you guys so much for stopping by and watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you feel inspired and have a wonderful day. Bye.